For you, just for you. All right, just to get this started, I appreciate everybody being here. Looking back, just kind of in a brief look back, from an injury standpoint, I talked a little bit Sunday about the possibility of 3. It looks like after practice today, really Popek's going to be really the only injury coming out of it. And I talked about how he was doubtful for this weekend with Syracuse, but yet both Tevin Mims and Demetrius Murray practiced today, so I think both of them will be fine, as I kind of expected them to be okay. But they're both going to be fine. Coming out of this game, it was pretty obvious that there's some things that we need to correct, some things we need to get better at. I mean, obviously the rush defense and the pass defense is certainly one of them, as well as being able to protect our passer on the offensive side of the ball. But as much as I feel like we need to make some improvements in the passing game areas, I was extremely encouraged with a number of things when it came to the run defense. I thought our front 7 played probably the best fundamental game against the run since I've been here. When you look at the front 7 and the way they played, the way they were square, pads out, I thought they were physical. I thought they had a base underneath them, the hand placement, separation. I think they did all the things that we talked about last week being a big fundamental week. And I think we made a lot of strides fundamentally in the run game, and was really encouraged to see that, as well as the running game. To go out and rush for 240 yards, or whatever it was for our grand total, to see that was encouraging. To see the way the offensive line was coming off the ball, the holes that they were created, and it wasn't just rushing yards from the running back cutting back against the grain and making something happen on his own, but there were some true holes, to run through where they were supposed to be. So it was really encouraging to see some of the things, some of the improvements and encouraging things coming out of that football game. The second bright spot really coming out of that football game, as I look back, were all the young players that probably saw their most extensive action since we've been here. You look at this season, there were 7 true freshmen that played probably their most significant role all season. When you talk on offense about Sean Price and Davario Montgomery, who played 21 plays at wide receiver. Sean Price, who played 35 plays, I think it was 38, had a huge 4th down conversion for us, had the touchdown score towards the end of the game in the 4th quarter. To have Brynjar Gunmanson go in and play 60 plays in this football game when we were able to have the success that we were in the running game, was really encouraged to see that, as well as maybe some upperclassmen, but Marcus Shaw and Michael McFarland, who also probably played their most extensive action in a game. I thought both of them played really well. On the defensive side of the ball, there were 4 true freshmen that played. J.T. Hamilton, who I think really did a nice job up front with Eric Lee as the defensive end, really did some good things as well with the linebackers. And to see Tayshawn Whitehurst and Zach Bullock get the reps that they did, and then to see Chris Bivens make the contribution he did on special teams was really encouraging, as well as Clavon Nelson, who got a chance to play as a redshirt freshman quite a bit at the defensive end position for his real first significant action. To see all those young guys play and to see it be one of the best performances we've had up front against the run, coming in against 2 of the better rushers in our league, who were averaging 5.5 and 5.8 yards per carry, to hold them both to around 2.2 yards a carry. I was really encouraged. Now, I say that again by first admitting that we've got some encouraged as I am in the run game, we've got some work to do in the passing game. And we've got a great challenge this week with Syracuse. This is homecoming. We're excited to have the opportunity to come back home. It's been a month since we've been here at home at Raymond James Stadium, and we're excited to come back home. Syracuse is going to pose some challenges for us as a football team. As I talked about our strengths and weaknesses a minute ago last week at Louisville, when you look at this football team we're about to face, their strengths are definitely our weaknesses right now. We've got a week to get it straight. We've got to play Syracuse this week. They are the number 2 offense in our league. They're throwing for over 300 yards a game. They have a very strong offensive line. They've got a 5th-year senior quarterback that's throwing for over 300 yards a game. They've got a very physical running back, and they've got 2 receivers that both have about 35 catches apiece. They're averaging 450 yards a game, and they're very explosive and very physical as an offensive football team. When you look at them on the other side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, I've seen great improvement as this year has gone on. You look at the last 5 football games, Syracuse has given up 12 points a game. They're playing really good defense right now. They won last week against Connecticut 40-10. They're playing really well together. They're playing with an awful lot of confidence right now. They have the number 3rd ranked defense in our league. They're giving up 329 yards a game, and yet you look last week, they held Connecticut to -6 yards rushing in the football game. Their linebackers are very active, probably the best group of linebackers that we have played so far this year, and that's saying a lot with some of the pretty good football teams that we've had the opportunity to play. But I really have been impressed with their linebacking unit. I think they're very active, they're very athletic, they're very fast, and they're very physical. They make a lot of tackles. And then probably the second area where they are the strongest is at the safety position. When you look at this defense, what makes them so good is they're so solid up the middle with their linebackers who can run sideline to sideline, and their safeties that are very involved in the run game. I think their defensive line they play a lot of guys, very multiple. They play 2 deep across the board. They went and signed a couple junior college players that are rolling in the rotation. They're playing a lot of people, getting a lot of guys on the defensive front, as well as with these active linebackers and a very active secondary, especially the safeties. Right now is posing for a really strong defensive unit. So it'll pose some great challenges for us this week. Their kickoff team is ranked 8th in the country as far as covering kicks, again, which I talk about some of their strengths are matched up against maybe some of our weaknesses, which is going to pose the challenge that we have presented to this team, and we've got a week to get some things straight to come out here and play at home. But we're really excited about having the opportunity to get back onto the field. As I talked about last week, nobody gets excited about the outcome of last week, but there's certainly some positive things to build on that we can grow into as we have 5 games remaining. What questions can I answer for anybody?
Talk about the running game. How big is it for you guys to have, all 3 guys really beginning to get into a rhythm a little bit? You had Shaw hurt for a while, and then having Demetrius back as well.
Well, having Shaw back and Lindsey, having Shaw and Lindsey out there really are making us significantly better. We came into the season and Marcus Shaw had a great camp and really was the guy. And then when he hurt his ankle, then we started to knock the rust on Lindsey, and you can really see Lindsey starting to get into that mid-season form right now. He's feeling comfortable. He's running confident. He understands the blocking schemes. He's seeing it. It's kind of happening in slow motion in front of him, and he's really doing a nice job, as well as Demetrius Murray, the physical running that he's doing for us and what he's bringing us as a pass protector right now. I think it's definitely a committee. Now, there's definitely 3 guys who are going to play at the running back position. I think all 3 of those guys are really doing a nice job for us. I think we're going to need them all as we go down the stretch here with the final 5 games.
You've had your dad here a bunch over the last 3 years, but when you bring him in for something like this, how much does it help to have an outside set of eyes to be able to say, hey, what do you see? Just to get a fresh perspective on things? It
helps a lot. I mean, we've talked about before, you get in the middle of the forest and sometimes there can be something sitting right up under your nose and you can't see it because you're so involved in it. Your arms are wrapped up and you're climbing into the offense, you're climbing into the special teams, you're climbing into the defense. What do we got to do? How do we got to get this fixed or that fixed? And like I've said before, I don't feel like there's really holes, but there's probably cracks, and you feel like you're kind of plugging a few of them, and it seems like every game a little different crack shows up that you're trying to plug. So it's nice to have somebody that can come in from an outsider perspective, especially with him who's keeping his eyes sharp. He's watching a lot of college football each and every week, looking at it from a statistical standpoint, looking at it from a film standpoint. So it's nice to have that view, to have him come in and be able to sit in his golf cart and watch practice and get a perspective on some things that maybe that we can do better to help us get there. So it adds quite a bit of value.
You talk about Syracuse coming in and throwing the ball as well as they have.
Yes.
Given that there's so much of this push to get this first interception, finally get an interception, do you like maybe the idea of having a game where the ball might be in the air a lot just to get that first one and get it out of the way?
As long as we can get some interceptions, I like that thought. I don't like the thought of it being in the air a lot if we can't break on the ball and cause some disruptions and get our hands on 1 or 2 of them to be able to create some turnovers. But it's to the point now not only have I never been this long, I've never heard of going this long, without an interception, and it's I want to win. I want to win more than I want an interception. You know, I mean, right now, if not getting an interception is what we need to do to win, I'll take going the rest of the year if it means we win the rest of the games. I mean, right now we just got to find a way to win, and an interception would definitely help with our pass rush and being able to, really contain the quarterback or keep him in that pocket and being able to break on some balls. I thought there were some, believe it or not, I think the coverage actually got quite a bit better, which is why he scrambled as much as he did, because there were some great coverage sacks there to be had, but there was nowhere to throw it. I think last week we made a lot of strides on defense. I talked about some of the fundamental principles where I feel like we really are starting to get it up front. I think the move that Chris made with the linebackers turned out to be an excellent move. And I think there were some really good things, and there was a number of coverage sacks, but then when he broke that pocket, now we got to get into containing the quarterback with the secondary, but not leaving your area too early, because he would start to run and then dump it. And so we've just got to do a better job of keeping him in the pocket. But I am encouraged that I saw some improvements, and I'm very hopeful that interception is coming our way. I'm hopeful. I keep thinking that every time he drops back to pass, I think this is the one right here. We're going to get this one right here. You got to believe.
Overall, why do you think the defense hasn't lived up to what people thought it would be in 7 games in?
I think we have not been, and again, we have not been as productive as we would have liked to have been from a pass defense standpoint. That does not just throw the onus on the secondary. That is pass rush, pressure on the quarterback, linebackers underneath coverage. That's a little bit of all of it. I don't think that when you look at most of our problems, they have come when teams have dropped back to throw the ball, especially when you look at like a Ball State when we go down and score and then they go down and answer it at the end. And again at Louisville, we've had the opportunity to win a couple games with the lead with under a couple minutes to go in the game and haven't been able to get it done. I think that to me has probably been the most glaring thing. We've put ourselves in a position to win. We just haven't been able to get it done in the fourth quarter, in which you worry as a coach. You don't want that to become a mindset. We've talked about this before. How do you build confidence in a football team without a win? How do you get over this hump? When you look at a game like that, how do you become a confident football team when you don't have a lot of experience to draw back on with a lot of success? And that's where we have to continue to make practices like a game. We have to continue to point out some of the improvements that have been made. At the same time, we've really got to be demanding about some of the things that have got to get better in order for us to be the type of defense we want to be. But I would think that is the biggest thing to me, is just we haven't been able to get off the field on third down. And I mean, this week we were, I believe, 42%. So a lot of these passing game problems come with a first down at stake, which means you got 3 more downs. We haven't been able to get off the field, and I don't think our pass defense has been what we need it to be the type of team that we want to be.
With some of the problems on defense, is it changing your offensive philosophy that you have to score, you have to get more points, can't settle for field goals?
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know that it's just so much settle for field goals, but you got to take more shots down the field. You got to try and create more big plays. You got to try and make some things happen. You got to throw the ball up and give some guys an opportunity. The goods and bads of that are when you take a deep shot and it's incomplete, you've got 2 downs to get 10. And now if you don't make it, your defense is right back out on the field. So you've got to be careful in that it's not just, oh yeah, throw it deep every play and that's the answer and then we'll score a lot of points. But we've got to find a way to be more productive. Because one of the hard things when you look about scoring offenses around the country, it's not offenses that are getting the ball 80 yards away and driving the length of the field 5 or 6 times. It's people that are scoring on defense, creating turnovers, offenses starting on the 2-yard line, the 4-yard line, the 10-yard line going in. I mean, there's some teams that have 30 yards of offense and have 21 points. I look at a team like Toledo, who played this week against Cincinnati, and they win 29-23, and they didn't score an offensive touchdown. I mean, so when you look at a lot of these teams that are scoring a lot of points, it's not just the offense has to take the ball and drive 80 yards 5 or 6 times during the course of a game, but it's our special teams has got to pick up a little bit of that. We've got to be able to create a turnover somewhere along the line to create some field position, and it would be great. I mean, probably asking for too much, but it would be great to see our defense score too. You know, it would be nice to see that as well.
You mentioned a lot of the young guys got still playing time. One of Sean Price had 3 big catches.
Yes.
Does he get a little more look to get more involved into the offense?
Yes, I mean, he does. He's a very talented young man, and you know, when you look, we talked about Andre Davis's impact starting about middle of the year. This is when, as I talked to Chris Bivens and a couple of them, I said, this is when we pulled the red shirt off these young men. We didn't pull it off to see them make the significant contribution in game 2 or 3. But it was that middle of the year when you really start to expect it, because you know, Sean Price at a position where you look at Evan Landy, Shields, Hawkins, you've got some seniors there that have played a lot of football. And it's hard to get a young man like that on the field over guys that are 5th-year seniors that have played a lot of football. But it was a matter of, you know what, you're going to get on the field when you learn to do all the little things the right way. And it showed when he went out there Saturday, he's ready. He's ready for that stage and that environment. I thought he played very well, and he's definitely going to play a bigger role than he has in the past.
Seems like since your season has started, the pace has been kind of, you know, you go to Nevada, you have a short week, you go on the road, and now you're a little bit more settled with some home games. You
Right.
think you can find a comfortable rhythm here being at home, and that might help?
I definitely, and I talked about last week, definitely helped us to catch our breath. Definitely helped us. I think you start talking about travel and the wear and tear that it takes on your football team. But it's not just that week, then it's the next week, and it seems like it just keeps rolling. And it's almost like we were in a downward spiral a little bit. And it's how do you get out of it? And that's why I talked about that open date really came at a good time to get our feet on the ground, to take a deep breath, to take a step away from it, really evaluate where we are, say what do we got to do to get better. And I felt like we did that. Now what we've got to do is build on that. We're on a regular schedule. We're back at home. We haven't been at home in a month. It seems like we've played 7 games, 4 of them have been on the road. Is that right? I mean, we played 4 of them on the road, so it just seems like it has been a year of travel. And there has been an awful lot of that, getting back late, etc. But really excited to have the opportunity to come back and play at home in a normal week this week. And hopefully, like I said, we can build on the positives from last week, and hopefully we can definitely improve on some of the things from a week ago that we need to improve on as well.
Skip, you shook up the kickoff return unit a little bit, putting Marcus and Terrence back there, and also kind of benefited from some short kicks, it seemed. Were you pleased with how those 2 looked back there and how that went?
Yeah, I think, when you look at the numbers, statistics in our kickoff return, they're not pretty. But, and also which goes in that is Sean Price picking up a muff and running it 8 yards to the 35-yard line, and it goes down as an 8-yard return. But yet you're starting on the 35-yard line. We had the one Shields had earlier in the year, etc., that have 0 return yards on it. But I thought there was a number. I mean, we got out to the 35-yard line a number of times. Now, we ended up with 2 major penalties on the kickoff return, which brought us back. That we've got to eliminate the turnovers, and again, it's 2 redshirt freshmen that are playing for the first time. A couple of these young guys we talk about, or because it was Willie Davis and Tayshawn Griffin that were, not Tayshawn, Trevin Griffin. I think those 2 were the 2 with the penalties. So part of the good with playing the young players also comes the bad. But I was encouraged with the kickoff return that I thought it was better. And it wasn't just the return guys. I think we got an opportunity to spend some quality time with the front people and the blocking, just like we did on offense and defense during the course of the week. And last week was a big fundamental week for us, and I think we made some improvements, and we got to continue to build on them. And like I said, right now it's whatever we got to do. We got to find a way to get a W. That's where we are right now as a football team. Whatever that means. If that means we got to run it, we got to pass it, we got to fall on it, we got to throw it deep, we got to find a way to get a win.
And shifting Rick up to the box and
Yes.
bringing Chris down on the sidelines, was that just with an eye towards recognizing the changes you were making at linebacker, or is that something you'll probably see the rest of the way?
Yeah, it's something you'll see the rest of the way. I was just trying to shake some things up. It definitely, with the move to linebackers, in case there were questions or needs for help during the game, it made sense to get Chris down there. But I also think from rallying a defensive standpoint, I think that was something that we needed, Chris down on the field, to be able to bring the defense together over on the sideline and talk to them and build them up and encourage them, because games are kind of highs and lows and ups and downs, and when you hit the down, you want to be able to come out of it, and I think that helped, having Chris down on the field. I definitely feel like it helped.
Talking about facing a veteran guy in the seat, to have had success the last couple of years in limiting his production, is that something that gives you more confidence in the defense?
Well, it's something we can sell. For sure, it's something that we can sell, and we have had, but it's also probably going to be motivation for him. You know, coming in here as a fifth-year senior, I'm sure that he is going to be geared up to have a great game and to play well, and with him throwing for 300 yards a game right now, I'm sure that is a huge motivating factor for him coming in here. But it's definitely something that we'll talk about and something that we'll use, and hopefully that's one of those bright spots that we can build on to how do you build confidence with a football team that hasn't had a lot of success on the football field, and that's definitely one of the things that we'll talk about.
You talked about some of the streaks, you know, losing games with, you know, at the end,
Right.
no interceptions. I mean, when you step back in your quiet moments, I mean, sanity-wise, how do you reconcile these things? How do you deal with them? And do you
I'm
try
waiting
not to
for
think
that.
about
I'm
them?
waiting for that quiet moment. I have the opportunity to think about that, because really, to this point, when you're in the midst of the season, you really don't have an opportunity to do it. I mean, there are right now. When things aren't getting done, you drive harder, you push harder. I mean, as coaches, you're leaving later and later every week, trying to, what can we do? What can we do to find that one play, or find that one thing that's going to give us the opportunity to get the win? And so you're just right now, you're divulged into film, and what you've got to do, offense, defense, kicking game, what are we going to do on the punt return, you know, what are we going to do, how are we going to go block it, what are we going to do on, you know, the kickoff team, what are we going to do? So right now you're just immersed in everything that you have to do to go get a win this week, and then as soon as this one's over, it's going to start the next week again for Connecticut. And when the season's all done and the smoke settles and the dust clears, then you have maybe that opportunity for a day to sit back and reflect about what's happened in the last 4 months before you got to get on the road and go recruiting. I mean, so I get an opportunity to evaluate it then, but I don't. It's hard to do right now.
Are you a believer in the law of averages? These statistical anomalies that, you know, this has got to come back?
If I wasn't before, I am now, because as we've gone through it, I am definitely a believer in it now, because I am waiting to be on the receiving end of a lot of these close wins, rather than being on the end of these close losses, which is what we've been going through.
Could set an interception record.
That would be great, set an interception record, and to watch the win streak become built here in South Florida. That would be great, and it's a great time to start it this week. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time today. Thank you.